We built this platform for stories unfold. Mindset to manuscript, speaking truth bold.
Diverse voices from the street to the stage. Your voice deserves to shake this ground. We coach, we write, we amplify sound.
Mindset to manuscripts on the scene. Now's the time, the place, the dream. Tell your story and get it straight.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this episode of Mindset to Manuscript with JT Speak Your Truth.
Mindset to Manuscript, hosted by JT Key.
Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Beauty. And I see, like me, she's from the Bronx, New York. Of course, anyone from the Bronx, New York already has a thumbs up. Started modeling around the age of 10 years old. I traveled around the country and around the world, done some amazing things in the fashion and beauty world. She's here to talk about that and her journey and really inspire our audience, just in terms of believing in yourself and following your goals and whatever it is, to know that you are worthy and you can do it, not to give up on yourself. Especially, it doesn't matter the community, but for women, sometimes we just don't remember how beautiful we are. Tell us a little bit about you. Not just fashion, but what is it that kind of drives you to get to where you are?
Nice. Well, thank you so much for having me on. This is so exciting. Such a pleasure to have this conversation. I do think presenting is important. So I would say my first inspiration came from my mother. I know that's typical, pretty cliche, but a little bit about me. I grew up in the inner city, so I grew up in the Bronx, and then we moved to Georgia while I was still fairly young. So I spent a lot of time down south and saw completely different dynamics and different movements. But it was also always important to put your best foot forward. So for me, I think my love for fashion stemmed from my faith, because it was ritual every week. Go to church and you put on your best.
Yes.
So the origin of that, looking your best, came from picture day in elementary school.
I remember that, yes.
Those days. And then it turned into, we're going to church and you gotta look nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went to school for apparel and merchandising. So learning behind the scenes validated my love for fashion, but not so much just for name brands and things like that. It was more so styling, because clothes kind of speak to your character. So I developed that, fell in love with CAD design, and then after school, I kind of heavily pursued a little bit more modeling, pageantry, and found a space in this creative field where I actually like, because it's so left brain for me, which is normal. And other side's looking at my thought process like I'm crazy. But it's the method to the madness sometimes when I'm styling clients now. So
Yeah, and so let's talk a little bit about just moments, and we can go into whatever aspect of it you like. And this is a conversation, we're speaking our truth here. But are there moments where you do find yourself, you're doing styling, you're doing modeling, you're doing, a lot of different things. And is there moments where you may feel overwhelmed or feel like maybe there's something you like to do more than others? And how do you handle just not getting rid of something and saying, I can handle all of these without being overwhelmed?
Very good question. I think I find myself being overwhelmed when I'm not doing enough, because I think I know that my love for these things have purpose, whether I know where it leads or not. So if I'm not active, not modeling, not in fashion or retail, touching clothes, seeing it, I feel like I'm dying. And I feel like I'm not living. And it could be doing something peaceful and not even having a job, but then I feel like I'm wasting my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit, go more deep into that. Was there something that, I know you talked about your mom and how, when you first styled her, and she's a huge inspiration to the trajectory of who you are. But even prior to that, what made you say, Mom, step aside, let me style you? Like, what was the trigger that was like, Beauty, let's be, let's come in and do this?
It was her lack of fashion sense that was amazing to me. I don't know where I came from. I think I was just born with lipstick and heels already. I was like that kid that was, as soon as I got a little permission to doll it up, lipstick was all over my face, right? So my mom, coming from the islands, was just a tomboy, very natural, laid-back vibes in certain island communities. So my mom was definitely part of that, right? Like, barely shaved her legs.
Right. Sorry, Mom.
Oh, well, she's looking down at this conversation.
Oh, gosh, okay. That's just
No, she lived her life, so she's probably laughing with us. But it was her lack of motivation for that feminine aspect of being a woman that kind of prompted me to kind of want to see it on her. Like, Mom, put some lipstick on. Why don't you wear these jeans? And I remember when I was, let's say I was about 9. It wasn't anything fancy. It was just some wide leg jeans, because she loved her denim, and maybe like a denim button up that we wore together, right? Loose fitting, but she had a slick ponytail and a red lip.
Right.
I styled this outfit, okay? I was like, you're wearing this. I'm like 9, 10 years old, like, let's go. And barely down the street, some guy is pulling over to talk to her, and it turned into him taking us to lunch.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And that was it.
Buying groceries, because we were on the way. Because she's like, no, I'm on the way to the
Buying groceries,
Yes.
Beauty?
Yes, he went to, yes. It turned into a whole thing. And I was young, like, wow, look at this whole thing happening just because she dressed up.
Right. And that red lip.
And that red lip. It was like the changing moment.
Right,
And then she couldn't say that she didn't enjoy her day. She couldn't say I didn't do a good job. It's just one of those things that I saw a smile in her face from the reaction and how she felt and from the attention.
Yeah.
So it definitely sparked I like that.
Yeah. It's funny because, one of the things I say is, everyone has a story. You just have to tell it. And how you tell it is up to you. And fashion is our story. It's like our book. It's the manuscript, right? The stylist is your editor, right? Coming in and fixing it in different ways that make you pop, make you do those kind of things. And what ways did that dynamic between you and your mother strengthen your relationship? Did that, I'm sure it was already great, but did that make it better and just help in the dynamic that you had?
Yeah, it definitely did. It also helped strengthen my resolve, because she was also diabetic and she needed therapeutic shoes, and she would spend, like, back in the day when I was young, $500 was a lot. That could be someone's rent.
Sometimes.
Well, yes. So it's definitely an amount you just lightly don't brush off, especially when I was young and she was going through these issues. So she needed therapeutic needs, and she would never wear these shoes. I just remember being in her closet. I don't know if I was helping her clean it or what, but I was like, where did these shoes come from? And if you've seen those shoes, you kind of have an image in your head.
Yes.
And she was like, they're ugly. And she told me she spent $500. And I'm like, you never wear these.
Wow.
And you spent so much money.
Right.
And this is a 10-year-old me, okay?
Right.
So I was really like, what? So in my mind, I was like, whoa, now as an adult, like, piecing through that, I'm like, yeah, she definitely helped bring that out of me to where I wanted to bring in therapeutic needs, but also fashionable, because, you know, the working woman sometimes doesn't have the luxury of wearing heels or wearing this, you know, but they still want to be, you know, feminine, beautiful. So that definitely helped me in my resolve, but it also did help strengthen our relationship because she started to trust me. You know, I would make little improvements to her outfit and she gained reaction and good attention. So by the time I was in college, she wasn't even looking anymore, and there was no fight. There was just, Beauty, what am I wearing?
Yeah, she knew.
What am I wearing today? I need you to pick out my outfit. And then it just became second nature.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. You know, you gave her power. Give her her power back. You know, and that's amazing for a daughter to even have that foresight. You know, as a daughter, obviously, you know, the relationship that you have with your mom is powerful. It's what can encourage you or discourage you. Your parents in general, and you don't have to be a woman. It's just in any level. And I think that that's amazing that she trusted you, and now you're just like doing great things and it's empowering for you as well, because it's almost that check, you know, that green light saying, okay, now I'm 10, and now 10 years later, now you're doing it, you know. Are there moments now as we move forward and you become an adult where you had to kind of, when things weren't as simple, right? And someone wasn't as trusting, and you had to insert yourself, where you had to go back and catch that power from when, you know, like, what's it called? Channel that power from when you were with your mom, and that in order to get through, and just moments where you maybe didn't feel as powerful, maybe powerless, but you knew that this was your calling, it is your calling, and you kept through. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, because I think that's borderline where, you know, how was I building confidence, whether I was successful or not. And I think once I started narrowing down my actual passions and interests, it never escaped me, right? So it was just part of my nature to be dressy, and naturally just naturally by nature, just extra feminine. And trust me, my sister even was annoyed because she was a tomboy too. You know, she grew up in Antigua, born there, and, you know, kind of experienced that laid back, we don't care type of, you know, atmosphere. But I don't think I ever did, you know. Being born in the Bronx, everything's fast-paced and moving, and even, you know, in second grade, like, you already have, like, I don't want to say you already have bullies, but you already have, like, you already have the movement of, like, what are you wearing, or what do you look like, or, you know, so it was already starting to happen at a young age. But I think as I got older, just knowing who I was and never forgetting that, right? Because there was a transition from moving from Georgia, which is, you know, down south, kind of cool, up to Detroit, which is fast-paced, very heavy in a way, and it adapting to that fashion, right? So Detroit was now, I'm in high school, you know, very feminine by nature. My mom had no problems going, oh yeah, that mini skirt with that tank top, perfect.
That's amazing. A lot of people don't even have that. So
that's
great.
That's a blessing. You know, that's true. I really don't think about it, but having that type of relationship with your mother is great in a way, right? And I think about it as normal, but it's really not, right? Like, I joke with people that I could tell my mom, like, I need underwear, and she'd just come home with, like, 10 thongs. I was, like, 15, like, Mom, why are you buying me thongs? Like, I need regular underwear.
I'm not there yet.
Or she's like, but this is so cute, you know?
Oh, my gosh. I love it, though.
She was just hot by nature, and I had this cute little body, so she was just ultimately like, like, this is my little baby doll.
And she birthed you, so she's like, the body really is a manifestation of me.
She claimed all of it. She loved all of the attention that, you know, if we went out and I was cute, she loved it. Oh, you like my daughter? You think she's cute? She played off of that. So there was some give and take. So I always had this strength of knowing, like, okay, at home in my culture, like, you know, wearing these things is okay. You know, I wasn't over sexualized, but I liked sexy things or, you know, develop this style to where I was like, you know, showing my curves, but not really defining it as sexy at 16, right?
Sure.
So there was this space where it's like, this is me, this is who I am, and if other people don't accept it, that's on them. You know, I have a size 9.5 shoe, like, you know, I'm 5'7". It's okay. Like, I'm okay with knowing that these are what makes me me.
Right.
So by the time I got to college, you know, I was that girl that was showing up to class in heels.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
So you know, adapting to this space where that's not normal.
Right.
I was always different.
Right.
Always. Right.
Yeah.
So when there was backlash, I found strength in not changing because it would not be the same when I got home.
Right.
Like, why are you not yourself? Why are you not wearing this?
Yeah.
You know, why are you... I didn't know what Jordans were.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know what they were. And, you know, all the girls in Detroit, 14, 15, they're wearing it.
Right.
I had no clue what this was, you know?
Right.
And if I told my mom I wanted Jordans, it would be, well, first of all, we can't afford it. But then second of all, that's not even your style. So why are you doing this, you know? And I knew then conforming to what was normal in society was just not my lane. I already knew from a young age, like, that's just not going to be me. You know, if I want to wear heels to class with these jeans, I'm going to do it, whether or not these other girls are going to look at me and go, oh, she's doing too much, or she's just way too extra.
Right. Because that's your normal.
That's my normal.
That's your normal.
Yes.
That's right, you know? But what do you say to people who may not, one, maybe their relationship with whomever raising them is not as transparent? You know, they love their look, and in today's society that could span across so many different things. What do you say to that person who needs to hear that it's okay and to embrace your beauty, your fashion, your style, and that is your normal?
So I was listening to, I found a community on YouTube with these, you know, pretty girlies that speak about their experiences, and I found some validation in some of their talks. And I overheard a story to where, you know, when you're told not to wear makeup or don't wear this, like a bold red lip, you know. I grew up really in a 7-day Adventist environment. So makeup, anything that makes you stand out is just automatically a no to the older generation. And there was always this battle of, you know, how is God telling you to tell me not to wear lipstick? And he didn't tell me, you know?
Just skipped right over you. So fun to tell you.
Like, how did he tell you? It didn't tell me. And I had this logic at 15, like, there's no way, you know? So I don't know where you're getting your messages from. But we didn't get the same message, you know, because I got the message that this looks cute, you know, it matches my outfit. I want to wear it. My mom said it was okay.
And that's that.
And that's that, you know, like, who are you, you know? So I already had this kind of entitlement about it. But for those people who really don't have that transparency and that luxury of having that space, you know, it is really just finding about what gives you peace, right? You know, are you speaking to your truth? Like, when you sit down and you do some self-reflection, because that's not normal now, right? A lot of people find it hard to, like, kind of just be alone and just sit with their thoughts, whether it's good or bad. Whether you know, you have a guilty conscience or you don't, you know, but that space to where you're acknowledging, like, your truth doesn't come into play a lot. So you find yourself conforming. And I think that's the first check that you have to do for yourself. Like, when you go, I'm not going to wear this because if I wear this, is it going to be too much for someone else if I show up to this event? And then that's when you go, I shouldn't care. Like, why do I care? You know? And then if you don't have that immediately with your parent, you do have to kind of establish, I don't want to say boundary, but you do have to assert yourself to where, you know, this is me, whether you accept it or not. Because if you go on not living your truth and, you know, not taking a risk, you never just find out where you can push yourself, you know, and the opportunities come, you know. What if you take a risk on that bag and then someone's like, I love your bag. You know, my friend has that bag. And then you find out like the friend has connections. Or, you know, you just never know where the conversation leads. Yeah. And you owe it to yourself to kind of live for yourself. Yeah. And I was never taught to not do that. I was always taught you can do anything and go anywhere. Yeah. And if you're wearing a mini skirt and a tank top, do it. Yes. You know, make sure you look good. Yeah. You know, so I sympathize with those people who don't have that freedom, because it does require more work. But if it's not easy, is it worth it? Right? Like, so you have to, if you're not going to fight for yourself, right? Who's going to fight for you? Right. If you don't take that risk on yourself, who's going to do it for you? Right. So when I was in college, I did not care about the glances. Right. You know, I was trying to be friends with a group of Black girls that I, you know, started to like bond with. Right. And I didn't care that their first impressions was like, who is this girl? Right. Yeah. And that
was your truth.
That was my truth. Yeah. But that also made us friends. Yeah. Because I wasn't willing to conform, and I was willing to meet them at that space of, if you are who you are, I am who I am, and that's it. Yes. And people who are supposed to be around you will respect it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. We have Beauty here, a renowned stylist, fashionista, model, and we'll get into what you're doing and what you've been up to. But I agree. It is one thing when we say, you know, God is perfect and doesn't make mistakes. So how you are thinking and how you are, that's designed that way, you know? So I love that. Yeah. I want to learn a little bit more about those moments where you did feel empowered despite any adversity that you may come in. You know, it takes a lot to jump on a stage and model. It takes a lot to insert your style on other people and have that confidence to do that. And not even just in beauty and not even just in fashion, but just in general, when maybe it was something else you had to grab onto, or it was fashion that had to get you through something else, and kind of overlapping the two to get through. How did fashion help you through those moments, maybe when it wasn't always all about fashion?
Mm-hmm. So younger, you know, very humble beginnings. I think I make sense as a person when, you know, I do speak about those moments of growing up and being very not as affluent, or, you know, rich, I should say. Mm-hmm. You know, my mom did her best, but she married, and, you know, she was not from this land, nor did she ever try to adopt being into this integrated society. She made it clear, like, I'm not from here. You guys don't have beaches with clear water. And I, you know, like, she made it clear, you know, so there was no assimilation. And I think that was helpful for my shaping. But it wasn't always easy, because I did want things that I couldn't get. And it was, how do I make the best out of what I have? Right. And when I started to do that and know how to do it, and it did help that, you know, I was always small and fairly thin. So I didn't have any really, you know, huge weight issues. So that was very helpful to say, you know, I could kind of fit into a lot of different things. And I would borrow clothes from my niece. And she would, you know, she would allow it sometimes. But, you know, it was very simple things, you know, but that's when I learned, if it's tailored to your body, it doesn't have to be expensive, you know, but something about it fitting you perfectly makes you look even better. Wow. So I was able to do that with just very simple things. And I didn't even know people were paying attention, you know, like my peers were watching this, you know. So again, because I was always in church, you know, I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, so we would go to my church on Saturdays, and then my mom's husband would go to church on Sunday. So it was two different groups, two different friend groups, but still the Sunday church had a little bit more of a laid back vibe. And one of the guys were like, how do you make that look nice?
Interesting.
I think if someone wore this top and skirt, it was like a long skirt, it covered my knees. When you're in high school, that's not cool, right? But I was able to like drawstring the shirt to fit my body, and you know, it made it look different,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So when this
yeah.
guy was like, how do you make these things look good? Like, it's, you know, because he's really into like this,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
Jordans, like
Right,
these
yeah.
name brand things, right?
Right,
And here I come, just cute with like
Right.
simple clothes.
Right.
And then everyone's like, you look so nice,
Yeah.
you know? It was like, it's not how much, it's just the space that you're providing for it.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
is it tailored to me? Is it clean and presentable? Do I look nice and do I feel confident?
That's
and
the key word.
It's
and I was
and
gonna
it's
ask
when
about
you
that.
go out there and it's just simple, but you're confident.
Yeah.
There's something beautiful about that anyways.
Yeah.
So it's attractive.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you have the other girls that are spending hundreds on their
Right,
outfits
yeah.
going, why is this girl getting attention?
Right.
And she's wearing a t-shirt from Walmart.
Right. Well, you said it, Beauty. It's confidence. Confidence, it goes a long, long way. No matter what, you can have a garbage bag on. If you walk down the street and you're
Yes.
walking with confidence,
Yes.
everyone's going to look at you and then be like, you know, maybe I'm going to do it too, you know?
And that we play with that on the
yeah.
runways. You see a lot of this
Yeah.
exploration in space and textiles. So yes, that creative mind pushes you into this space to where it's like, it may not be much, but how am I going to construct this?
Right.
What's the silhouette going to look like?
Right.
Like, who is this made for? And then, you know, you find that space and yes, you're exuding confidence. And then if you feel beautiful, I truly believe that you're going to treat other people like they're beautiful. Like, whether it's not, you know, always from the outside, but truly, when you look and feel good from the outside, it starts to change something on the inside.
Yeah.
And you are going to exhibit that
Yeah.
and spread that.
And spread it out.
And that's ultimately the goal, right? Like, when I'm styling women, if I could let them feel beautiful from what they're looking for or searching for, then my mission is accomplished. Whether or not they spent $1,200 with me or $500,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
this is the mission.
It's the mission. I love that. Thank you so much. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing right now. It's multiple things. What are you doing, and where are you feeling the most joy right now? The most confident. And I know a lot of times people do things very well, but that might not necessarily be the thing that they want to do, but they do it because they do it well. So let's talk about that space and your thoughts and encouragement for people who are finding their way. So what are you up to now? What are you doing?
Well, now I'm a stylist for a big retailer. You know, customers can book my services online. I also create product videos for the website where I just talk a little bit more about the product. Sometimes I try it on and model that. And then outside of that, I do partake in, you know, fashion shows, hair shows. And then prior to that, I have a little bit of acting on my background.
Okay.
So something about pursuing this space where
Right.
I can explore and be creative, that's very important to me. You know, when I find myself not in the space, it's always how do I get back into the space?
Right.
And even when I'm not there, doing something creative, like my hobbies, like painting.
Right.
I like to draw.
Okay.
My dad was an artist, so there's always this like moment where I'm like, I have an itch for color pencils
Okay.
and a sketch pad, you know. It's just like, get it out. So I do like to make sure that I keep that part of my life there because it is therapeutic, right?
Yeah.
Like, I find joy in that, and sometimes relief as well, right? So when I'm just not doing anything mainstream, I am working on myself, you know, writing, the art. But now I am kind of just building momentum into getting back into acting. You know, I left the space for a bit after my mom passed away. So now it's kind of pursue what you really want to do. So the styling position I am doing now. I am working with John on projects, modeling projects. I was just in a beauty competition. That's inspiring. So I'll end up doing it again so I could pass the crown on this year.
Right. So stop for a second, because first of all, what was the competition and what did you win?
So I was awarded Miss International Beauty for 2025 from John Blassingame and Associates. And this competition, I will say, you know, really pushed me back into a space mentally to continue to pursue what you like to do. And I do like performing. I don't know why. That's kind of, you know, but I mean, I get nervous and you know, but
No, I understand.
the ultimate, you know, end where I'm like, oh, I'm on stage, you know, is rewarding. So I find some validation in that space. So if anything else, you know, even if it doesn't lead to millions later, I'll be gratified in knowing that, you know, you never gave up the space in beauty, right? Like, this is where you started, you know, cutting up the jeans when you were younger, dressing up your mom, you know, wearing heels in college, not caring about the walk, you know, I cared about being cute, you know, you know, and even just managing retailers, store, you know, the gravitation of like finding that niche of other girls helped create that inspiration where I'm like, oh, this is inspiring. You know, you come looking great, you inspire others to do the same thing. So I see myself in the future building a space to where I can help other people develop their skills, whether or not, you know, it's here in Jersey, but I do see myself cultivating this space for other women because what I want is for not even, you know, just women in general, but mostly like as well, like in the Black community, because I struggled a lot in that space, you know. I went to predominantly white schools and never really had as much backlash for exploring fashion as I did in the Black community. So there's a bittersweet sword where I'm like, I have to go back and like do something. So, you know, even though I'm doing the modeling thing, pursuing more acting jobs, you know, creating a space where I could find myself in art, I am looking forward to my future goals. And my future goals involve building schools where, you know, girls, this is the goal. And hopefully someone takes this and maybe they could do it. We can have a competitive market. I don't care. I'm all for it. You know, if someone beats me to it and starts it. But I do want to create like a finishing school where girls can attend on the weekends and have like maybe like a 9 to 4 type of thing where they're learning like different skills and maybe like a sport. And that's helpful. That's cultivating and it sets them up for success when they move on to college. So, you know, just from my experience, from my high school careers, it's so vital to teach that space of confidence. Don't change for other people. And I'm moving the things that I do now. Every little step, I think, is paving the way for that to come true.
Absolutely. So where can we find you? You said that people could reach out to you if they wanted to get you to style them. Or...
Yes, I would love that. My Instagram would be the best place to catch me, and that is at Instagram. So we're Beautie Caamell. So that's BeautieCaamell. And on there I have links to my YouTube and even my modeling page. But that's the best place to kind of send me a message.
So thank you so much. So what advice or piece of encouragement would you give to another young person or older person for that matter who knows that beauty or styling or fashion is their thing, but maybe it's not something that is just falling on their lap, you know? It's not something, but they're like, no, I know it. And God said yes to me, but he hasn't said yes to you yet, but he's going to. What kind of piece of advice, encouragement, inspiration can you provide to our audience who are trying to understand where their place is in this industry and in this space?
I would definitely say take the risk, take the calculated risk on yourself. Because even in transition from moving from state to state, I always went back to my origin of what really do I want to do? You know, and even though this is a new environment, what's the next best step? You know, not the whole plan.
Right.
And I know sometimes people are like, have this business plan, have this whole plan. But sometimes you don't have the strength or the capability to even think through all of that. You know, you just know that you have to do something, and then just making the tiny but next best step. So if it involves taking a risk on moving, making that new friendship, applying for that job, fixing that resume to apply for that, the next best step is putting you closer to that orbit of being in your passion, following your dream. And you have to never give up, because when I wanted to give up, God was like, nope, not yet. So just never give up, you know. And even if you're not getting encouraged or you're not seeing the results, know in your heart that, you know, it's all going to be restored. You know, it's even if you've lost, it's all going to get restored. And that little bit of faith, right? The faith of a mustard seed, that little bit of faith will take you to the next step. So as long as you never give up and you keep going, right? Like, that's going to lead you.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because when we first came on this conversation, or at some point, I remember you saying, you know, there might have been a time when you did want to give up. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I did, because I was, and it wasn't even that long ago, you know, because my mom died in 2020, then my sister died in 21, and it was like, what? Like, I just lost the two women that raised me. Building and starting all over again is hard, you know, and when you don't have the support system that you've known, when that's broken and everyth's changed, you know, there is this part where you rebuild and you have to kind of like figure out who this new self is, and that's very hard. I don't think I made it just on my own merit. I think I made it because the drive of never giving up and always thinking that God was going to restore kept me moving, you know. And I think you have to remember that. You know, if I had given up, I wouldn't pursue any of the modeling. I wouldn't have gone into the competition. I would have stopped all of it. But at the core of me, if my mom looking down would say, that's my daughter, or that's not my daughter, you know, was going to influence my decisions, I wanted to make sure that she was going to say, that's my daughter. And she never stopped because I left, right? So it pushed me out of my element, and I think that's where you find the most growth, is where you're out of your element, everything is changed, you know. And don't get me wrong, my faith brought me through this. You know, I was looking up, you know, people similar, you know, who lost everything before, like, made it again, you know. What did they say?
Well, we need those people.
We need those people.
Yeah.
We need those stories.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking at Job. Job lost everything. Joseph lost everything. I was looking at these people, and I was going, you know, there's a reason, you know, why, even if I don't understand, you know, that my life has shaped this way, and you know, this energy around is existent. But what do I want, you know? And finding just a little bit of strength to figure out the next best move and put my step forward. Keep showing up to work, keep showing up for myself, keep making sure that, and showing up for myself meant you didn't lose your sense of fashion. You didn't lose who you were, you know. You know, you might be depressed, but you didn't just let your hair fall out, you know. You made sure you got it done, you know. All those things are self-care, you know. Like, I don't know, like, you know, like where I'm going, but I'm getting my nails done, you know.
We'll take it from there.
You know, and then sometimes that leads to, like, unexpectedly. So I it's hard. It was very hard. I think God was keeping me on track by speaking through other people. So it was almost as if that was motivation in itself, not to give up, you know. And I had to look at every little tiny miracle as a miracle and as a blessing. Like, whether or not it was someone like, let me just pray for you. After just meeting them, I'm like, okay, in the corner in front of everybody in the store.
Now.
But saying yes to those because I was receiving it as God speaking through me, because you know, when you lose so much, you do want to give up, and you're almost tempted to just go, why does all of this matter? Like, why does this make sense? You know, what's my purpose? Like, what's my mission? Why am I here?
Right.
Why does the earth exist?
Right,
you
right.
know, you go on this, you go on this whole spiral.
Yeah.
But really, you know, when you find the center and you go back and you go, okay, thank you, God, for making me through that day, you just start to realize, like, for me, I just started to like see, like, this was a tiny miracle, and maybe my mom is still watching me.
Yeah.
You know, maybe my sister is still supporting me.
Right.
So I have to keep moving, and it took work to keep showing up.
Yeah.
It took work, very hard work. You know, it's not easy. Emotional and mental pain is probably far worse than physical, right? Like, your body's gonna physically heal itself,
Yes.
but when you're emotionally going through something like heartbreak or loss, like, it's so hard to kind of move through this pain. You know, you have to push your mind like through it, and it takes active work. So affirmations worked for me, believing in myself worked for me. There was never a day someone was like, you're not beautiful. So so even those little moments where people are still giving messages where they're like, it's okay that you know, it's okay, you know, just keep going. Those little moments all helped, and being vulnerable and sharing with the right people, because keeping all that inside would have been death to me, and I don't think I would have been able to push through. You know, I think I needed support from people to go, no, go to that audition, or no, go to that casting, no, like, keep going, like, you know, have that conversation, for me to go, okay, they must see something I don't, so I might as well just keep, you know. And it's work, but it pays off. It does pay off.
Wonderful. Sometimes when it seems simple, that's that phrase, give it to God, right? When we're feeling that stress, then we haven't given it. But when it seems simple and easy and it's flowing, you're like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be, because I gave it to God. Creating this community, the one like the community you said that you saw online, and one that you might begin in, you know, even if it's the finishing school or something, where people can come and say, you are my crutch, not crutch, I don't like that word, but my rock, my support. As maybe I didn't have that mom who did it. I didn't know someone who was there for me. Or they were, but not in the right way, the way that I needed. They were in the way that they wanted. Give that Instagram account information again.
Yes, that's Beautie Caamell, BeautieCaamell.
Okay, yeah. So I really thank you so much for being here, Beauty. This is Mindset to Manuscript with JT, Speak Your Truth. I know it's a mouthful, but there's a lot that has to be said, you know. Everyone has a story, you just have to tell it. And how you tell it is up to you. So this is a platform where we don't have to write it to speak it, because we are constantly growing. So, Beauty, thank you for coming. Now you are an official living manuscript, a story in motion. We look forward to following you. Everyone, please follow this podcast and just make sure that we stay in touch with what Beauty is doing. So I really appreciate you. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we complete this episode?
Stay hopeful, you know, definitely stay hopeful. I think that's important on the journey, you know, and always believe in yourself. I know you hear it a lot, but it takes work to get there, where you can just do it without consequence. So definitely keep those two things at the forefront and make magic happen.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yay!
Yay! Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mindset to Manuscript, hosted by JT Key.